Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. This week my guest is magician, writer and actor John Archer. In this episode he tells me how he first got into magic, a big career change, and I find out the real reason why he won't be appearing in Pantomime this Christmas. So please, sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. My guest for today's Panto podcast is John Archer. Hello, John.
Hello there, how are you, Hayden?
I'm really good, considering, and the weather's changed.
Yes, it has, hasn't it? You arrived in the rain in your van with all this high-tech equipment and this mic I'm speaking into. I'm just going to be quiet and check that it can pick up my ticking clock. It's a good mic.
Well,
I'm trying not to move because of the squeaky chair, which I know it'll put. You're in the non-squeaky chair. I'm in the squeaky one.
well, I'm in your little office, kind of study
Boudoir. Yes.
And I'm looking around. Magic, comedy. It's a little boy's dream, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And we don't grow up, do we? I don't think, us blokes. And so this is just, all it's toys. It's just toys and books telling me how to make toys and all sorts of nonsense. I mean, there's so much in this room now that whenever I tidy it up, it takes me several weeks because I'll find something and then I'm 2 hours looking at it and playing with it and I didn't even know I had that. Oh, that's a good trick. When did I buy that? Or I just go to move a book and I just open it and then I'm sat reading a chapter for half an hour. So yeah. But it is my favourite room in the house for me. My wife gets annoyed sometimes. I do end up, I can come in here and I'll come out at 2 a.m. I came in at 10 o'clock in the morning and and she says, "You've never been out of your room." And I go, "Haven't I?" She says, "Well, you didn't even come out for a coffee or a bit of fresh air." And she thinks I'm weird, but any other performer would fully understand it. I think other magicians, comedians, I think would understand it.
So this is the hub. This is where you get your ideas from.
Yeah, I don't know if I get a lot of ideas from this room, really. This is more where I'll work them out. My ideas just come from life. The ideas come more from when I'm out and about travelling, which is maybe why I haven't had many ideas for the last year and a half, because I've just literally been in here. The problem with being in here is there are so many ideas here in every single book, and all the props I've got. There's so many ideas that it's almost counterintuitive. It stops you coming up with stuff. Whereas when you're out with none of it surrounding you and you just see something or hear something, it's more of a stimulus, I think. Here it's just overkill with stuff. So this is where if I have an idea, this is where I'll come and think, right, how am I going to do that? And pull the books out and read and get on my computer and write and draw and whatever. So yeah, the ideas come from out the room and then they get developed in the room. It's probably how I would say it. I can't really think of any things I've created other than writing. When I'm writing for people or writing scripts and things that happen in here, I'll sit at the screen and type away and maybe pull a book up to inspire me on something. But actual magical ideas, performance ideas, don't really happen in here.
What were you like then as a child? Were you into your magic?
I was quite small. Yeah. About 8 pounds at the start. Now I'd love to lose that 8 pounds several times over. I went through phases. There was a period where I was sort of a chubby kid, which is probably no surprise. And I think that's where the comedy developed. It's a bit of a cliche of, fat kid bullied. I was never really bullied, and I think maybe they're just humour. And I wasn't a geek. I was quite popular at school. I was the funny kid, and I think people liked me. I never really got bullied that much, but certainly maybe being slightly overweight. And I wasn't massively. When I look back at pictures of me now, I think you weren't fat. What were you thinking? But it's weird, isn't it? Yeah. But I was a little bit chubby, perhaps. And I think that is where, that helped. When you're not, I think being good looking can really hamper you as a comedian. I think being good looking, you don't have to try to impress anybody. You don't do. We talked about this earlier before we started recording. It's sort of you don't see a lot of good looking comics because they don't need to rely on personality. It's why some of the most attractive women aren't necessarily really good looking. I do sometimes think I do sometimes find female comedians quite attractive, as well as being slightly threatening, to a man, I suppose. But yeah, it's that personality thing that you come up with. I also had funny. I had funny in the family. My granddad was he wasn't a professional performer, but he would always get up. So he was always getting up on amateur stages. They'd go on holiday, my nan and my granddad, and to these holiday camps, in the 50s, maybe even the 40s, I don't know, but he'd be the one who'd get up and dress in drag and play silly characters, and he was always telling jokes, not jokes he'd written. He wasn't creative in that way, but he had a memory for jokes, and he'd always be telling jokes at family gatherings. And that's on my mum's side. So my mum was like that as well. My dad's got a good sense of humour. So we always laughed in the family. So and we always watched comedy together as a family. We always watched Dave Allen when I was little. I can remember feeling really grown up that I was allowed to. I think he was on about 9:30, and I was allowed to stay up. It might have been 9. And I was allowed to stay up and watch him, and we always watched Morecambe and Wise together, and Les Dawson, all those classics, from the 70s, which is when I was sort of developing it, as a kid, and starting to see how comedy worked. So that was all going on in the background. We were a family that laughed together. I wasn't a rock star good looker, so the personality came out. It all happened because of that. I'm rambling now, but you get the idea.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, you can edit that down to a sentence if you want. I was an ugly kid and I got funny. That's all you need.
And did you ever sort of follow in Grandad's footsteps? Any competitions or school shows or things like that?
I was in my teen years. I really sort of wanted to be a rock star rather than a comedian. Even though I was funny, I sort of I wanted to be the even then I talk about some of the comedians being old style comedy. My music was all old school. In the 70s I was into the music of the 50s. Sure. So I wanted to be Elvis. So I was in some school musicals. I played Pharaoh in Joseph and the Amazing Technical Dreamcoat. I loved that, the Elvis costume. I actually lost weight for that. I don't know whether there's a picture of that in my office anyway. Is there? No, I was just looking to see if there's any on the notice board. I've got pictures pinned around, but it exists somewhere anyway. But yeah, and I lost a lot of weight for that to get into this jumpsuit that they'd hired from Newcastle Theatre, and that was great. So yeah, I sort of had dreams of being a singer, musician, which never really happened. But yeah, I was in the performing whenever I could, and I went to amateur drama groups. I was a member of Dovecot, the old Dovecot, which I don't know if you know Stockton very well, but there's now a place called the Ark, a theatre in Dovecot Street, but it used to be the Dovecot Art Centre. It all got knocked down and rebuilt. Whole new place got built called the Ark, and I used to go there and be part of a drama group, and studied acting amateur wise. I never really studied professionally or anything. I went to college, but so yeah, I always was thinking I'd love to act, I'd love to be a musician, but a stand-up comic or a comedy magician. I mean, magic then didn't even exist. I didn't really get into magic till I was 19, so magic wasn't even on the cards then, but certainly a performer, but more serious, more sort of music drama.
And then you had this sort of big career within, for those listeners who don't know, you worked for the police for a number of years.
I did, yeah. That sort of came around. I mean, that didn't happen straight away. So what happened was I left school at 16, didn't go to sixth form. I got an apprenticeship, which existed then and were quite popular. And I was an apprentice draftsman. I'm always quite artistic, but also I was good at sort of maths and physics. Loved technical drawing as well as art, you know. So I got an apprenticeship as an apprentice draftsman. Worked for a company called Wilson Walton Engineering in Cargo Fleet down in Middlesbrough, making oil rigs. So I was doing all the, learning how to do all the drawings for these things, and I was doing a mechanical engineering course at the time, ONC and wherever they used to exist then. And after 3 years, I think I was just felt a little bit in a rut, and felt like, obviously I had this artistic side to me that just wasn't seeing anything, and so I decided to go to art college. I always say I got sick of drawing straight lines and wanted to draw wiggly lines, and that sort of sums it up. So I went to art college. I went to Middlesbrough College of Art and did a foundation course, and then I went to Central School of Art and Design in London and did a degree in product design, or industrial design as it was called, basically designing how products look, designing the styling of a kettle or a car or whatever else, the artistic side of a design of a product. And that's where the magic started, when I was down there, and we can come back to that later. But so I did that and came back from London, deciding that if I became an industrial designer, I'd just be stepping back into where I'd left as a draftsman. Basically I'd be in an office at a drawing board. All right, it'd be slightly more artistic, but I really didn't want to be in an office. I thought, I don't want to be, I want to be out and about. And I tried various jobs. I was a youth worker for a year, which I quite enjoyed. And then somebody said, why don't you join the police? And I don't know why, but it sounded like a good idea. I mean, it's a crazy idea now, but I thought, I'll be helping people. Every day will be different. I'll be out. I won't be stuck in an office. And so I did. I applied for the police, and for 10 years, I worked at Stockton Police Officers, just as a PC, sort of doing general police work for the first 5 years, and then the second 5 years of my 10, I got given the position of school liaison officer, which was a really cushy job. Basically, I went to schools. I worked 8 till 4, weekends off, no shifts, no fights in pubs, and I went to schools and told the kids about what the police did, and it was a PR role. And I got the job. It was an old man's job. It was always classed as a PC who'd done 25 years. His last 5 years, he went to school liaison officer, and I think I was hated because it got given to me, and I only had 5 years. But it got given to me because I was known in the police as doing magic by then, and also having this sense of humour. My mum was a nursery nurse. I had actually started doing a teaching PGCE. I only did a term of it. So my sister's a teacher, so I had this teaching thing going on as well. So I can stand up with a group of kids. I can stand up in front of them and make them laugh. I could do kid shows, and I loved it. And I was doing kid shows then, so I got this job. So it was really cushy. It meant I could do gigs at the weekend on my own and whatever. And that was sort of the police. The last 5 years, that was due to end, the school liaison bit, and my gigs were busier, and I sort of escaped medically. Basically, I got a hearing condition, It's great. I'm not. You don't have to ask any questions, do you? I'm just rambling. Um,
I'll come back in. I'll come back in a couple of days.
yeah, exactly. No. I'm just covering the police time and why I got out. I got a hearing condition called Meniere's disease. Pardon? And yes, exactly. And that meant I got noise and also some dizzy spells, which I don't have now. I just have the noise and deafness in my left ear. And somebody said, well, if you want to leave and go full-time as an entertainer, don't just leave. Tell them about that. So I went and saw the police doctor and said, I need to inform you about this condition I've got, which I'd had for a while and not mentioned. And he said, are you wanting to get out? I said, well, I don't care, really. And he said, well, I can't see how we can keep you in the force for another 20 years because, you know, you're a risk. I said, you're right, I am. So I got medically retired, which was a nice, easy way of transitioning because the pension was enhanced because it was medical. So instead of 10 years pension, I got a 17-year pension. And it wasn't a lot, but it covered the mortgage. It still covers the mortgage, to be honest. And that meant that I could then move into, you know, doing the comedy and the magic, which had developed throughout the police time. You can jump back now if you want.
That's fine. But there's always been that sort of entertaining part of you then, with children, that connection, the innocence of children and being silly.
Yeah, being silly. And also, and I always say to people, I don't do this for money. I've never ever been, maybe should be, but I've never been motivated by, I want to be rich and famous. I think, if I'd have had a manager who, right in the early days, I'd have probably ended up going a totally different route. But I've always been driven by that thing of, I just love to make people laugh. There's just something, I can get quite emotional about it, just thinking how wonderful it is just to make people laugh. I am getting emotional. It's just when you've got an audience there, I'm sorry, and I've had it several times, lots of entertainers get it where somebody will come up to you and tell you about how life's been difficult for them, and you've just brought a bit of joy. It's very special. I think I'm more emotional about it now because I'm missing doing it. I'm missing going out there and it's just really, we're given such a gift to be able to bring happiness to people. So that's sort of why I'm driven to do it, I think.
When did the Panto career begin?
Well, do you know what? I haven't done a lot of Panto. I didn't tell you that earlier on because you might not have had me on the podcast. I've done 2 Pantos. I did one quite a long time ago for a small company called Jake's Ladder Theatre Company in Blandford Forum. They don't exist anymore. They're both, the couple who ran it are both teachers now, teaching drama in public school, but they had a lovely little drama company and they did a Panto in a school in Blandford Forum. They had a public school that had its own theatre, 600 seat theatre, and with it being a sort of public school, it had all the great gear, and I played Little John in the Panto Robin Hood, and I was again me and Motherhood, who was the dame, a guy called Steve Evans, who's now this teacher down Queen's College. I think he's in Taunton. I think he teaches that now. And he was very funny as a dame, and we had this relationship where me and him were allowed to go off script. Now some pantos won't let you do that. The one I did more recently, it was pretty much stale script. But I loved just the idea that you could ad-lib around it made every night different. And I think, you know, you can see pantos where that's allowed, and you can see pantos where it isn't, and you see pantos in the middle where it's made to look like that's happening. But yeah, that one was great because we just sort of, I mean, the other actors obviously would just sit there and sort of wait until we came out of this little, you know, we never went for long, but it might be 3 or 4 lines, you know, about somebody in the audience or about a job that somebody had that we'd spoken to. And also, you know, I was allowed to break that fourth wall and chat to the audience out of the thing. So I really loved that. And then recently I was Silly Billy. No, not Silly Billy. Muddles in Snow White at Stockton, at Middlesbrough. Sorry, at the Little Theatre in Middlesbrough. And that was good fun. That was harder for me in that I sort of, you know, I had to stick to the script to a certain extent, and for me, my style is much more. You know, if I see something, I'll want to mention it, and I think you can sometimes lose laughs. You can lose a lot of laughs that, you know, the extra laughs that you could have got. But I can see why, you know, some directors want it one way and some want it another way. I still enjoyed it. I still had a great time. But you know, it was local, which was the sort of draw for me. It was, you know, I could go home every night, which is a bonus sometimes, and sometimes it's not a bonus. You know, sometimes it's sort of you're a bit detached from the rest of the cast because, you know, they're all, you know, hanging out and doing the thing, and you're sort of just going up, see you tomorrow type thing. Yeah. So I'd like to do more. The problem I've got is I'm in that, and this slightly contradicts what I just said about I'm not in it for the money, but but I'm in that awkward position that I'm not famous enough that I'm a draw that'll mean I'll get paid, you know, good money. But equally, I'm not unknown enough that, you know, a few £100 a week doing a panto sounds great. So I the problem is it comes in December. Now most entertainers know that your December helps you get through January and February when it's quiet. And so in December, you know, I have a lot of, you know, I can get a lot of gigs. I can normally fill my diary up. That's my dog barking. It's not my wife with a bad cough. Actually, it might be wife with a bad cough. That would be funny, but it's not. So I'm in that slight awkward position that if I get offered panto, it sort of means that I have to take a huge drop in that December month, which is the biggest month of the year. You know, and when I did the Stockton one, I did effectively earn less than I would have normally earned that month to do the panto. Yeah, but I would love to do more. It's a bit of a frustrating situation, really.
You want to do it, but
I want to do it, but you know, it just, if I'd have had, you know, a couple of TV things and I was just like, oh, that's John Archer, but my name isn't. I mean, I've done, you know, Britain's Got Talent, and people would know me from that, and Fooling Penn and Teller, and, you know, years ago, kids would have known me from Help My Supply Teacher's Magic on CBBC. So there are things that I've got going. And I suppose if you build up, and I mean, there are people doing panto, as we know, there's loads of people doing panto that you've never ever heard of. But there's sort of, you've got to get to yourself to the point where the people booking the pantos think he's worth the money, he's worth paying that.
Gets bums on seats.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit of a chicken egg. It's a bit like, you know, Edinburgh Festival. You can do Edinburgh Festival, but when you start doing it, you've got to earn no money. And you probably earn no money for 3 or 4 years, but eventually, if you're good, people learn about your show, and you know, they've seen it last year, so they come again, and it builds and builds, and so you get people who aren't massive names, but they've been at Edinburgh every year for X number of years, and they start making money. So it's probably the same with panto, really. Maybe as I get older, I might do a few more.
Would you consider writing panto? Because you've got such great writing credits as well.
Yeah, 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 possibly. I mean, the thing is, it's funny, Panto, because I can remember working with Keith Chegwin once. Sorry to name drop, but it's slightly relevant. Worked on a show when he was hosting It's a Knockout. It's a Knockout came back. And he was one of the hosts with Frank Bruno and Nell McAndrew and a few others. And I was a writer. Well, I was the writer for the second series of it, the new version. And I used to write jokes for Keith for the commentary and for the talking about the team. And I can remember once, going to him with some material I'd written, and he was a lovely guy, Keith. And he sort of got over his drink, and he was teetotal and very sweet and loving and everything. And he sort of read through the stuff and he said, "This is all great, John." He said, "But can I not tell one that they know?" And and it sort of summed up that old school comedy thing, and it sort of encapsulates a little bit what Panto's like. Panto's not really about original material as such. There are original little bits that come in, but a lot of times it's well-known, well-trodden bits. The 12 Days of Christmas and the Fuzzy Bee, what have you got in the high for me, and all these different little set pieces, set gags and gags that people almost expect, and bits. So if you're writing it, you sort of end up, it's just a collation of a lot of those things. The story you can't subvert too much. I'm very much of the idea that kids should still be able to enjoy the story. There's some pantos now where they are basically just a series of speciality acts, and there's no story, and a lot of it is adult-based humour for the parents, and the kids are missing out and stuff. I do think panto should be a story the kids can understand and follow. It's the first experience of theatre, and they want to go along and feel like they've been told a story, I think. So you can't veer off it too much. So in answer to your question, I would consider writing, but I'm not sure whether it'd be anything worth paying for. If I'm honest. And I'd much rather. I'm a reluctant writer. I write. I do write for money. Money is the motivation when I write things, or it's because it's something I really, I'm passionate about. Like I'll write for Tim Vine when he's doing stuff because he's my best mate, and quite often I'm involved in it as well as writing it. And there's a few TV things I've written because I've been in them. We did the Help My Supply Teacher's Magic, I was a writer on that, but I was in it, so it was in my interest to write stuff that I thought was good. If I did another panto, I would probably sort of say, look, can I come up with can I write bits that I think will suit me in here, and tweak the script. Now some writers might not like you doing that, but some producers, directors might think, yeah, that's a good idea. All it can do is improve things. And I know a lot of comics who go into panto do that. They sort of tweak the script to suit themselves.
One big question. Flag Hippo. Where the heck did that come from?
No, that's not. That is the crazy mind of Tim Vine.
For people who don't know, by the way, should we set this up?
Yeah, well, first of all, if they Google or if they YouTube Flag Hippo, it will explain it to them. There's even I think Flag Hippo even gets married on one YouTube clip. I mean, when Tim told me about the Flag Hippo idea, I must admit, I shook my head, but then I thought it'll work because it's Tim and he makes the ludicrous work. He gets away with stuff that lots of comics just wouldn't get away with because he's got just a charm about him that people love the silliness. They don't question it. And basically, I mean, you've got to, it doesn't really do justice when you try to explain it. You've got to watch it. But it's just Tim says, and now, ladies and gentlemen, flag hippo, and music starts playing, flag hippo, and I come on, or flag hippo comes on. It has been played by other people.
Not like you though. Not like
No, not
you go full method.
nothing like me. No. But so Flag Hippo comes on, and it's basically a very cheap fancy dress hippo costume from a tacky fancy dress pink woolen hippo with big eyes and a sort of saggy head. And in the first incarnation, he reprised him in a second tour, and he did it with flags. But in the first one, he comes up with a chart with all maps on it, and Tim singing to the song, which one's Canada, and Flag Hippo points, which one's America, which one's Germany, Flag Hippo, and then Tim goes, hang on a minute, you don't know any of these flags, you just point to anything, and the Flag Hippo looks a bit embarrassed. Whole audience go, oh, and then he starts singing Flag Hippo, and Flag Hippo dances off again. Now, if you pitched that at any comedy meeting for any comedy show, they would think you were crazy, because there's no punchline. It is purely a visual bit of nonsense, but it sort of works. And and Tim's got lots of bits like that. I mean, I think he might get a bit annoyed that I sort of get a lot of the credit for Flag Hippo when really all I do was put the costume on and do what he told me to do. I like to think that I do it well, but he'd probably say anybody could do it, John. You just got to dress as a hippo and point a flag. So yeah, but that's the joy of working with Tim. You get to do some very silly things, and when I met Tim before, while I was still in the police, funnily enough, and he was a big influence on me writing my own material and being a bit braver and all that sort of stuff, purely through just watching what he's willing to try and get away with. And he's great in Panto. He does Panto reasonably regularly. Obviously hasn't for the last couple of years, but he's really good fun for Panto because kids love him. He's silly, he's clean. He's got songs, he's got props, he's got everything. He's an ideal candidate for pantomime, really. As am I, if anybody's listening.
Would you ever don the frock?
Do you know what? I think I would. People have said that to me. Would you do a dame? And I've sort of thought, well, how would I do a dame? And then somebody said, just do it like you're talking now. And he's like, yeah, I suppose. Now the kids, you all right? Go over here. I've got something to show you. So, yeah, I think I would. It would be slightly out of my comfort zone. I don't mean dressing as a woman, but slightly out of my comfort zone. That made it sound like I regularly dress as a woman. I didn't mean that. I mean, I've got nothing. I'm digging a hole for myself now. I just didn't want to sound like I was homophobic. Oh, dear me. Edit it all out. Anyway, what I mean is, I would find it more of a challenge just theatrically for me to be able to play that role. But I think I could do it. Funny's funny, isn't it? If you're funny, you should be able to pull it off in most situations. So I'd probably like to do that.
You're one of those people though with funny bones.
Yeah, people have said that, and I always wonder if that's true. But I mean, it's very nice that people say that, but you can't say it about yourself. It sounds big-headed to say about yourself.
I'm saying it.
Thank you. Well, that's very kind, and I do think that sort of thing does exist. I think there are people with funny bones, which all right, I might accept that. I have to a certain extent, and then there are people who are funny, but you can tell that they're working at it. You watch them and you realise that that everything they're doing is if anything off-piste happened, the struggle, you know.
Very scripted.
Yeah, very very scripted and very, you know, and yeah, and yet you can, you know, you do know the people who, you know, people like Frank Skinner. Frank Skinner's just got funny bones. He just knows funny. He just, you know, I love Frank Skinner, and there are lots of people like that. I mean, it's just a name I picked out of the air, but who, you know, you just they're just funny without saying funny things. They're just, you know, just funny people. So yeah, I think maybe I could pull off doing a dame. Maybe an ugly sister might suit me. Just
You couldn't be evil. I couldn't take you as evil.
yeah, maybe not. The only reason I said that is I'd have the security of another bloke dressed as a woman next to me, so I could just sort of watch what he was doing and copy it. But
I don't think it would work with you.
no,
because
you're probably right.
too kind. You've got a good soul about you, and you're
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
there's something in a way, in a nice way, something mumsy about you.
Yeah. You've got lovely eyes.
Thank you. Charm gets you everywhere. So one of the big things that you have done in your career, a lot of people will have seen this, and they can still see it on YouTube as well. You fooled possibly the two biggest names in magic.
Penn and Teller. Yeah.
How did that come about, for a start off?
Right, sit back.
Got me blanket.
Yeah, I was actually the first person to officially fool them in the show. There are people, I'm sure, who fooled them before, but that doesn't count. You know, the first one on the show who officially fooled them. It came about because I was asked, basically. But what happened was, I mean, the show's been going in America now for, I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7 seasons in America. But the first season was filmed over here, and before the first season, there was a pilot.
I don't understand. I'm in the Shrewsbury gun in America now for, I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7 seasons are in America.
All right.
Well, that was magical.
Yeah. Was that my phone or yours?
That'll be yours.
Was it? I thought I'd turn my phone off. I put it in airplane mode. That'll be. Hey Siri. Oh, you don't want to talk to me now.
She's got the hump.
I don't have an answer for that.
No,
Is
that's
there something else I can help with?
I didn't ask a question. That's why, Siri.
I'm more of the answering type.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you're more of the answering type. That's why I didn't ask you a question. Listen, don't interrupt. I don't want you to talk anymore. Thank you. I think it's because I said... Did I say it may sound silly? Yeah, that probably got her attention. No. So they did a pilot of the show in the UK. And I was heckled by Siri, for goodness sake. They did a pilot of the show, and obviously they'd never done the show before, and they were doing it in the UK. So they got in touch with all the sort of magical acts who were working at the time. So most magic acts, you know, who were visible on the internet or known to the production team, were contacted. And of course, we had no idea what the show was about. It was like, this show, you've got to try and fool Penn and Teller. And of course, magicians being magicians, we're sort of quite a closed group. Everybody knows each other to a certain extent. So on forums and chat groups and private texts, flying backwards and forwards saying, do you think it's possible to fool Penn and Teller? And everybody was sort of saying, well, maybe Penn, but not Teller. I mean, Teller's, you know... I mean, we were a bit rude about Penn, sort of said, Penn knows nothing about magic, he's a juggler, but Teller, maybe. In hindsight, I think we've realised he knows more. He certainly knows more about magic now than he ever did as a result of this show. But we were all a bit unsure. And of course, the other thing was, then, sort of, Britain's Got Talent was the only similar type thing where you were going on and trying to impress some judges. And that was very negative for magicians. A lot of magicians had bad experiences and, you know, been slagged off. I mean, that's changed. You know, Britain's Got Talent has almost done a 180 turn on how they view magicians now, but then it wasn't. So we were all thinking they're going to expose the tricks if they know how they're done. They're going to make us look bad, and they made lots of promises. Real strong promises. This won't happen. They want you to look good, and so I decided to give it a go. And I wasn't sure whether what I had would fool them. I had one trick, which was the envelope trick that I actually did, that I thought had a chance, because I'd come up with a new method for it about a year before. I'd shown a few people and it had fooled them, other magicians. I'd sold it to a few other magicians, but not many. And I thought, it's the only thing I've got which might take them by surprise. The guy who was behind all the magic and decided whether they were fooled or not at the time was a guy called Johnny Thompson, who sadly died a couple of years ago. Johnny Thompson knew my act, knew me. I'd worked with Johnny before, and he'd said to the production team, "Oh, you should get John to do his magic square routine. It's very, very funny." And I said, "Well, that's true. It is. It's a funny routine, but it won't fool them. It's a standard method that's been around for 50 years. It's just the presentation that I've come up with." And I dug my heels in and said, "No, if I do it, the only trick I'll do is this envelope trick." And as I was doing it, in hindsight, I realised what happens when Penn Teller watch a trick. If you watch the series, what they are doing is they are ticking off all the options. They are looking at all the possibilities, all the methods that you could be using to do a trick that they already know. So if you're doing a coins across in the hands routine, or if you're sewing a lady in half or whatever, they're looking at all the possibilities. Is she really there in the box? Is there another girl? Is there a mirror there? Is there this, that, and the other? And they're ticking them off. And as I was doing my envelope routine, I could see Teller watching me, going, "Well, he's not using that. He's not using one of those to keep the money in, and he hasn't got a tray, and there's only 4 envelopes, and the money's not folded when it came out. It's and there's more than one note." And I could see all the methods that he thought I could use were getting crossed out. Oh, it's not that. And so what happened was, by the time I got to the end of the routine, there was no other methods left, because I wasn't using any of those standard methods. And then he couldn't really backtrack. And thankfully I fooled them. I mean, if you watch the show, the actual deliberation went on for much longer. They've edited a lot of it out. And, they did get close with a few guesses, but there were guesses and they weren't close enough. And thankfully Johnny Thompson, who's up in the box with the director, said, "No, they haven't worked it out. He's fooled him." And it was a big shock to me. And I think it was a shock to Penn and Teller that they'd been fooled with such a relatively easy, well-worn, route, well-worn trick, not a well-worn method, but a well-worn effect. It's been done 1,000 times over the years. There's some money in one of these envelopes. You've got to guess which it's in, and you won't get it. That was basically the trick.
But you took a saucy angle to it as well, don't you?
Well, I took the I took the route of using words on the envelopes, which I've been inspired by Sean Taylor as a book, which I always get the title wrong. I'm going to say Mindstorms, Brainstorms, it's something like that. And he has a routine in that book called Persuasive Banknight, which uses the theme of advertising, and he has different things on the envelope. So he had a picture of a flower, one envelope was a different colour, and he had some words on. And I'd seen this routine. The method was a standard method that was not new to him, but the routine was new to him, and I thought I like the idea of just words, so I decided to make it all words and play the words off one another. Teller, when he emailed me afterwards, said it was Carolian language, as in Lewis Carroll, and a bit Jabberwocky-ish, just the way this one's got something, but the other one could have something, but this isn't the something that you're looking for, and it says nothing, but it doesn't say nothing, it says nothing, which is nothing. It was all those sort of slightly confusing elements of the words, which Teller really liked about the routine.
It flowed, didn't it?
It flowed. I mean, you said saucy. One of the envelopes had sex on. Which,
And mine.
And mine. Yours and mine, which is, mine is bigger than yours. And I deliberately printed the yours word bigger than the mine word. And a lot of this had come through chatting with people like Wayne Dobson. Wayne was very, helpful. He came and saw the routine and suggested, some gags. Pete Furman and Jeffrey Durham had sort of watched me do it and suggested ideas on handling. I'd done it at the Magic Castle for a week. A guy called John Lovick, Handsome Jack, had sort of watched it, and Derek Delgado, and they'd sort of said, at this point, why are you doing that? Why don't you do it this way? So, there was an awful lot of people.
Sounds like a lot of choreography.
There was a lot of choreography that the way and it's changed a little bit even since the Penn and Teller performance. Just realizing that the way you hold them, at every point, and none of that I sell it, but not a lot of that isn't taught because there's so much of it. There's some nuances that come with every routine. It's like you getting back to Panto, you watch some of these Panto slosh routines and things, and they just look like absolute chaos. But the people who do it well have got, every tiny little foot movement worked out, and you can see a sloppy one, so to speak, and you can see a really tight one, and you can see the difference.
Has that changed your life then, fooling Penn and Teller?
A little bit. I mean, it's always difficult to tell, isn't it? I mean, I certainly got a spike in work afterwards. And I remember doing the Co-op Funeral Service annual awards. It was the first gig I did after the Penn and Teller thing that went through my agent. Some of my smaller comedy club gigs, little charity stuff, I deal with myself. My agent deals with sort of TV and bigger corporate and theatre type stuff that comes in. And I remember going to do this gig, and it was a typical sort of corporate awards dinner. Everybody sat around and awards, and then I've got to do my little spot at the end when they're all drunk. And I remember chatting to the booker, and he said, "Oh yeah, we saw you on Penn and Teller Foolers." And he said, "You did very well." And I said, "Yeah, I might do that envelope trick actually tonight." He said, "You better, that's why we booked you." And I thought, right. So sometimes you don't realise why you've got gigs. And, I get things now, and I think it's layers, everything, with most careers, it's not one, with some careers, it's one thing that suddenly makes them huge. They do one thing, and it catapults them to stardom. But with most performers, the vast majority of us never get to that household name star status. We just gig in performers. We do a bit of panto. We do theatres, and we're known by some people, and we have our followers. And the vast majority of the country haven't got a clue who we are. That's me. But what happens is, it's not one thing with us. It's you do one thing, and that helps get a bit of gigs, and then you do something else. Britain's Got Talent, and then I've done quite a few TV appearances and bits and bobs. None of them massive. None of them big enough to, fire me into stardom. That could be my fault, or it could just be that there weren't a big enough break, or a big enough channel, or a best time slot, or whatever. But they all add on to each other, and so when people are thinking of booking, they'll look at your website and they'll look at your CV and they go, "Oh, he did that. Oh, and he did that, and he did that," and you get bookings. And you can't, you can create a website and put a load of quotes on from people that I've never heard of, Jill from accounts at Amazon Books, and that's not going to be enough. It's real it credible work that you've done that I think leads to more work. So yeah, it will have helped, but it wasn't that life changing.
Amongst your peers, though, that must have been quite a status symbol to have, though.
Yeah, I think among my peers, there's lots of little things that. I mean, among my peers, magicians. If we talk magicians rather than comic, I mean, among comedians, I'm not a big name. I've worked with a lot of the comics on the circuit, and there's a lot of them who know me, but I'm not a big name on the comedy scene. But in magic, I think because I've done a lot of magic conventions where I've hosted or I've done spots, and then I've won a few magic competitions, high profile ones like the Magic Circle Stage Magician of the Year, and then the Penn and Teller Foolers, and it's like the first one, so it was a bit of a thing for a while. Now that's sort of, there are so many magicians who fooled them now because it's been going so long that it's less of a thing, I think. Although to be the first person to go out, I suppose, takes a little bit more chutzpah, to do it. And then, the Britain's Got Talent, getting to the semis there, that gave me a bit of credibility. Magicians who watched it and know what was going on. So yeah, they all add up. I'm not famous, but if I'm famous anywhere, it might be in the magic world. That's where I'm more. If I wanted to have fame, that's where I'm closest to it.
Would you want fame though?
I think what fame gives you is the opportunity to do nice things, good projects. You get to work in really great theatres. You get to work with amazing people. You get to do a lot of fun stuff. I watch Tim, and he gets to do, I think he's doing the Celebrity Chase soon, filming that, and he's the name's got out of my head. Taskmaster. Sorry, I just had a mental blank. He did Taskmaster. I would love to do Taskmaster. I would absolutely love to do it. I'm not famous enough. If they put me on the show, they'd go, "Who's that?" "Oh, he did Britain's Got Talent. And he got the semi-final. Oh, and he was the first part full. Ah, right." But there again, I sometimes watch I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and I'm doing the same thing. Who's that? Never heard of them. So maybe I should. But yeah, so that's what fame gives you. Fame gives you the chance to work to more people in nicer environments, and it makes it a little bit easier. You stay in nicer hotels, and you don't have to worry so much about your January and February, so you can do a panto and not worry about how much you're getting paid. It's all of those things. That's what fame brings. Some of the stuff, they're constantly being recognised in the street thing, I would live with. I generally try and be nice to people who are fans of mine, and I don't think that would change if I was getting it 50 times a day rather than once every 2 months. I think I'd cope with that. So it's not. I don't desire fame. I've explained earlier, and let's not go there again because I've only just stopped crying. But my main motivation is that I love to make people happy and bring joy to people and change their lives, even if it's just for a little bit. So if that's how the rest of my life is, I'm happy with that. But I wouldn't shun fame. I mean, I'm 61 now. So, I mean, that's not old. I look at sort of Ricky Tomlinson, and you think, he was in his late 50s before anybody really recognised who he was. So it could happen. And I'd like to do more things that might bring me to the public eye. But again, just because they'd be fun to do. I did an episode of Not Going Out for Lee last year. And I was only a taxi driver in it, and I only had 3 or 4 lines, but I was in throughout the episode, and I just loved it. And I thought, yeah, I'd love to do more things like that, because I think I did a reasonable job. I didn't mess it up. I didn't look at the camera and start shaking.
Do you get nervous before performances?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think that very much depends on what you describe as nerves. I don't get scared. I'm not worried about going on, but I get adrenaline pumping. But I never think, oh, I can't do this. I never have that type of thing. So sometimes I think people mistake adrenaline for nerves. And adrenaline can cause you to shake a little bit and your heart to pump, and that's a natural. That's a fight or flight thing. That you want that when you go out in front of an audience. You want to be, alive. You don't want to be half asleep and like you're sat in a chair. So yeah, I have that, and if I feel that it's that I'm getting too much, I'll jog on the spot. I'll do it just to try and get that adrenaline pumped through my system to get to. But I never feel sick or think I can't do this or worried about going on. I said never. Now and again, I might get a little bit heart pumping, thinking, I hope this goes all right, and that things like that were Penn and Teller Foolers. I was backstage before that, filming that. I'm feeling a bit, and thankfully Jonathan Ross, bless his heart, who I hadn't really spoken to throughout rehearsals. He was sort of dealing with other stuff and learning his bits, but he was stood while my video was being played, and he said, I saw you in rehearsals, you're very, very funny, just go out there and enjoy it. And that was really nice of him to say. He didn't have to do that. He could have just stood chatting to the makeup girl or whatever. I was nervous when I did the audition for Britain's Got Talent at the Palladium, but when I did the live thing at the Apollo, you would think I would be more nervous, but that just felt like work to me. That just felt like it's a live audience. I wasn't bothered that the cameras were there. My mum and dad were in the audience. I just thought I just want them to enjoy it. So I was excited. I was really looking forward to going on. The guy who was helping me backstage, sort of helping look after the props and make sure everything worked. He was more nervous than I was. He was like, I can't believe you're so relaxed. I was going, it's going to be great. Don't worry. Nothing can go wrong. And I sometimes get a little bit nervous if I'm doing something new that I haven't tried before. I might get a little bit nervous if there is somebody special in the audience. That could be family, or it could be somebody who's I know could give me some, good work, a TV producer or a booker for good theatre shows or whatever. That could make me a little bit nervous. But that doesn't happen very often. So the vast majority of the time, just the day-to-day gigs, no, I'm just looking forward to getting out and doing it.
What do the kids think then of their dad being this kind of comical magician?
Do you know what? It's not something we talk about. I mean, we do talk, but that's not something to talk about. I think they're proud of me. I'm sure they're proud of me. That's stupid. Of course they're proud of me. But I think they probably think it's quite cool that their dad does this for a living. I mean, both of them does it for a living. That's true. I've got two sons and a daughter. My daughter's not involved in show business at all. She's marketing manager, but she's quite theatrical and funny and show busy in her own way. But she doesn't do it, in front of audiences and stuff. She does it for friends, I suppose. Makes jokes. My two boys are both songwriters, guitarists and keyboard players and drummers. They play everything and they're very talented. Both got a sense of humour, but they're sort of involved in showbiz on the periphery a little bit as well. So they maybe understand, more now than ever of what it's like to live the life I've lived and be out on the road. And obviously they missed out on me a lot when they were younger. When other dads would be home, I'd be in Prestatyn or Rill or something. You come
The
back.
glamour.
Yeah, exactly. And come back.
No offence to people in Preston, not real.
No. You can't upset the people of Rill. I've tried. They watch my act. So yeah, they've probably had to suffer a little bit because of my career and missed out on a dad when other kids would have had dads. But then they've had lots of other things that other kids wouldn't have had, and experienced lots of things that other kids wouldn't experience. Seeing the dad on telly and seeing the dad do funny things, and and getting to do a few cool things with me and meeting some cool people. So I think, they find it cool. I can remember when Tom was the youngest one. He's 29 now, 30 this year. And I can remember when he was a little kid once, I was just sat in the house watching TV. And he came in with about 5 of his friends from the street. And he just sort of walked in, and they all walked in, and they all just went, and he went, there he is. And they all went, and they all went out again. And he just sort of brought his friends in the street. Can we see, is your dad a magician? Is he and I think that was probably when I hadn't been professional very long, but it was like, yeah, what does your dad do? Oh, he's a comedy magician. And he sort of brought them in to see me. So yeah, I think it's cool, isn't it? I think kids would find it cool to have the dad doing a cool job.
One thing about you is you're a big guy. I'm a fellow big boy myself.
Yes.
But you come on stage with a tiny little ukulele.
Yeah.
And so you've got that instant juxtaposition, and it makes you smile anyway. What made you choose the uke? Or did the uke choose you?
What happened was, let's go right back to those early days before the police, when I wanted to be a singer, musician, and I was in a couple of duos. I was in a duo called Take Two, who were there. They are. That's me, with me and Nick Haig there on my wall wearing the boaters. And that was like a comedy duo that we had. And then I was in another one called Fresh Fish. I don't know, there's a little... no, there's no Fresh Fish thing up there. I'm just talking about all the stuff that's on my notice boards and pin boards, by the way, everybody. And those were music acts, double acts, Take Two and Fresh Fish, that I got a chance to start tested out my comedy in between songs, and then eventually tested out magic tricks in between songs, till it got to the point where I went solo eventually, because nobody wanted to work with me, and I was doing comedy and magic with music, and I used to do a guitar, and it was sort of comedic songs, with some comedy and some magic. And I had a whole PA that I used to travel with, and a harmonizer for my voice, and digital effects from the guitar, and MIDI drum kits, and all sorts. I mean, it was quite involved for a while, and then I got sick of carrying all that stuff around, and so I went to just an acoustic guitar. But because the comedy and the magic were so much fun, I was doing less and less with the guitar, until eventually I was like taking my guitar for 1 or 2 songs during the act, and it sort of fizzled out. And my 2 sons, well, mainly my oldest son, sort of hijacked my guitar and disappeared from here up to his bedroom, and the music disappeared from the act. And then I'm trying to think how long ago it was, but it's a long time ago now, before ukuleles had their resurgence, before ukuleles were really big. I watched a clip of Joe Brown at the Royal Albert Hall singing "I'll See You in My Dreams" for George Harrison's memorial. Like, they had a little thing, and he sings "I'll See You in My Dreams." It's lovely if you look it up on YouTube. Rose petals fall from the ceiling of the Royal Albert Hall as he sings this, plays the ukulele, and a backing man sort of support him. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. The ukulele, it's very poignant and it sounds nice. I had a lovely sound. And I mentioned it. I don't know which kid I mentioned it to, but one of my kids, I just sort of mentioned that. Yeah, I said I wouldn't mind a ukulele. So for Christmas that year, my 3 kids chipped together and bought me a ukulele. So I started playing it, and all the little silly one-line songs that I used to do with my guitar, things like, I put my father in a liquidizer, now I'm drinking pop, which I'd written in a Haven holiday camp, years ago. I thought I could do that on the ukulele. So I thought I'll just put a few of those silly little one-line songs, into the show again. So I started carrying the ukulele. And then I realised it did have a big guy with a little ukulele does have an image, and I thought, yeah, I'm onto a winner. I mean, it's sort of slightly annoying now that ukulele has become so big. It's such a popular instrument now, and everybody's doing it. But thankfully, I sort of got in on it early enough that when people talk about who's that comedy magician with a ukulele, most people would say with me, there's a great Kaplan in America who does a funny thing with a ukulele, but he doesn't really play it as such. But he has a great gag. But yeah, so this sort of image, and then I'd always liked the idea of the concept of the tears of a clown. That idea of doing something poignant at the end. So I then started closing with the ukulele thing, and what I do now, I have several endings where I close with the ukulele, and one of them I sing "Crazy" to the audience. Yeah, crazy for feeling so lonely, and I talk about how basically I've fallen in love with the audience, and I sing "Crazy" to them, and it's there's a couple of laughs in it, but it's pretty straightforward. I have another one where I sing "Tonight You Belong to Me," and I talk about the audience are going to leave and they're going to laugh at other people, but just for tonight they were mine, and thank you for belonging to me. I also used to have a classical thing that I played, and then recently I've been finishing with "Smile." The Jimmy Durante "Smile, oh your heart is aching." Oh, it's not Jimmy Durante, but I always think of him singing it. It's the music that Charlie Chaplin wrote, and words came later by somebody else. But and what I do is I play the whole night about one guy in the audience not smiling, and I said, and then it cuts to a single spot on me with a ukulele, and I just sing "Smile" to this one guy, and there's a couple of comedy payoffs in it. But I really like that. I really like that very old school comedian finishing with a song thing, and I'm not embarrassed about it being old school. I think there's a lot of stuff about the way the old comics worked that worked, and that that finishing with a song thing is very powerful. So and the ukulele sort of does fit with a big guy image. So yeah, that's sort of how it developed, why it happened.
Who were your influences then growing up?
Some of the people I mentioned. I think the biggest one would be Morecambe and Wise, Tommy Cooper. I used to do a lot of Tommy Cooper-esque type gags when I started. A lot of prop gags. I dropped them really when I got to know Tim, because Tim was doing a lot, and I started touring with Tim, and I didn't really want to be confused with Tim, but also a well-known magician called comedian magician Noel Britton sort of said to me he didn't think they suited me, and he thought I relied on them too much, and I got to the point where I thought, right, I'm going to ditch all the prop gags, and what that did, the prop gags were I've gone off the subject slightly now, but the prop gags, I'll come back to my influences, I will. The prop gags I used, like I used to have a plastic pigeon with a handle on it. I'd say that's a carrier pigeon. And I'd have my name written in wood. I'd say, look, I've made a little bit of a name for myself. All those type of things. But what they were like little crutches. They were like little things that I relied on a bit like sometimes a comedian will have a catchphrase, something that I just relied on to give me thinking time.
Like a stepping stone.
Yeah, it was like a stepping stone. I've done one thing and I think, right, what am I going to do next? And while I was thinking what I'm going to do next, I'd just pick up whatever's on the table, what prop, and do that gag and then throw it away. But what it was doing, it was stopping me from being brave and ad-libbing and being brave and covering those things with something real. So that's why I got rid of them. But Tommy Cooper was was a big influence in that, and that's why that came about. Also, Dave Allen, I loved. Les Dawson, I really liked. I really liked Les Dawson's storytelling. There's a lot of routines I have where I tell stories, and the way I tell the story is very much. You might not notice it. I'm not saying it's as good as, but it's very influenced by that Les Dawson thing. I gave her a cup of tea. She held it in both hands like this because I had no cups. That is very Les Dawson-y, and I mean it's a visual. You've got to see me cup in my hands, but she held it like this because I had no cups. There's lots of stuff like that that's influenced by him, and then lots of sort of comics of the time that I really enjoyed watching. The Carry On movies and all of those things, all the stuff that was going on in the 70s. There was a rich vein of comedy on television then. That was guys standing at a mic. We don't see as much of that now. As a lot of the comedy is sketch based or it's situation based. It's not really, stood at a mic telling gags on TV so much. You still see it, obviously. You still see guys doing that, but we had shows like The Comedians and and specials. Everybody had their own specials where they were just comedians doing stand up and then introducing a guest and then more bits of stand up and another guest. Those sort of shows are less prevalent now.
It's a shame, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I mean, things change. I get that, and audiences change, so what they like changes. But you sound old when you say it, but I'm not convinced that if somebody made shows like that again, they wouldn't have audiences. People do like variety, but I think a lot of the TV companies are frightened of not having lots of celebrities in a show, especially for Saturday night television. If they haven't got lots of big names, they think they're not going to draw an audience. So we'll see shows, where it's a panel of celebs, and the talent. That the recent show, what was it? Game of Talents, was it called?
Yeah, something like yeah.
I mean, it's a nice enough show, but you have to guess that a panel of experts helped some contestants, some celebs helped a contestant try and guess what talent these people had, and then you got a little show of their talent. The people who were talented were like the least important part of the show to a certain extent. That performance was just proof that they had this talent. And it's a shame, really, because if you had a show where these people were given the chance to show it, I think audiences would love to watch great talent. I mean, we've still got loads of great talent. There's loads of people travelling around doing burlesque shows and cabaret shows and comedy shows, and people in Panto that are never seen on TV, but amazing talents. Ventriloquists and comedians and magicians and acrobatic acts and speciality acts. Loads of them. There's still loads of them around the world, and sadly, unless they decide they're going to compete for 30 seconds on a talent show, they're not going to be seen. And I think there's an audience for it. You might need a celeb to present it, maybe, to hang your. But I think a variety show, well, we saw some great talent. I think it would work. If you know, it doesn't have to feel old-fashioned. You know, you don't have to have the long shots that we used to have. I understand they want to be cutting all the time, but I think it would work.
Something that you were involved with a few years ago was a very brave move for ITV, the sketch show.
Yes.
Which I think it was put on completely at the wrong time, sort of 10:30 at night, wasn't it?
It was,
and it was lost. And I only saw it because I bought a DVD of it.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen it live.
Yeah, and great names in it as well. I mean, Lee Mack was in that, and Ronnie Ann Corner, Tim was in it. You know, that's why I ended up writing on it. You know, it won a BAFTA. It was it was a great show. It went out at the slightly wrong time, and it's funny because you know, you were at the mercy of sometimes one person. You know, sometimes it's one person who's sort of making the decision of I'm not really behind this, and even though lots of other people can be, you know, shows that, you know, should get seen get lost. Yeah, we had a few things. We did a great thing. Tim Vine Travels in Time, which
that was the pilot the other year, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did a pilot, and then we did a Christmas show with Emma Bunting, I think it was in the Christmas show. And that was great and loved by many, many people, but you know, it sort of didn't get the viewing figures it should have got for the time slot. So it never got a series. But some other shows that were made as part of the same test got less viewing figures, but they were shown at a different time slot, so they were viewed well. They got decent figures for their, you know. So it's like, yeah, you got bigger viewing figures than this show, but this show was on at a worse time, so therefore it did better. It's slightly confusing. And honestly, it's what's fashionable. You know, sometimes clean and silly isn't fashionable, and edgy and political is fashionable. And you know, it swings and roundabouts. These things change. They go up and down. And I did a pilot for a little sitcom's probably a bad word for it, but it was like a little half-hour comedy drama thing called Insecurity. I made it with Paul Tonkinson. I think it's on YouTube and Vimeo. And we made it with initially we made a little tester, and Paul knows Michael McIntyre quite well, so Michael McIntyre got to see it, got in touch with Henry Normal at Baby Cow and said, oh, you should have a look at this. So Baby Cow came to see it, which was Steve Coogan's company. Still is, I think. Henry Normal's not there anymore, but Henry basically had a look at it and said, we'll give you a bit more money. Do you want to finish it into a full half-hour episode? Because we'd done a 10-minute teaser. So they gave us a little bit of money, literally about $5,000, I think, and we filmed it and made a reasonable little pilot episode. I mean, budget, you know, it was made for about maybe $8,000 in total, which is nothing, absolutely nothing. And everybody we showed it to loved it. You know, Michael McIntyre loved it. Steve Coogan liked it, as far as I'm aware. We've got loads of comics sort of saying, oh, I love that, but we couldn't sell it to anybody, and it's because at the end of the day, it just didn't fit in with any of the demographics with the particular channel. So you go to one channel and say, well, it needs more youth in it because that's our demographic. Another channel would say, well, you know, there's not enough, you know, ethnic mix in it. So another channel would say, well, there's not enough. You know, they all have their own thing. I'm not saying that's wrong, you know, but every channel. And then of course it's like, well, there's no celebs in it, and of course me and Paul are not famous. So you know, you can't sell a show that is actually, you know, was liked by a lot of people.
The 70s seem so much easier, don't they?
Yeah.
Like when what was it, Monty Python, when they said, we want to make a series, okay, go and make 13 weeks or 13 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, that will happen now if you're a big star, if you're a huge success. You know, you can, you know, certain people could just say, I want to do something. Well, yeah, we'll fund it, because they know that, you know, stars get, you know, we're very celeb orientated as a country now, probably as a world, I suppose. America's probably the same. You know, a lot of television is celebrity driven, and you know, that's what people want. So you can't criticise it if that's what people watch. But I'm not sure it's always the only reason why things should happen.
It'd be nice if people were given a chance, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Somebody
and
has
I mean they are, but a lot of times you've got to you've got to make it somewhere else first. You've almost got to. It's just not. You're right. It's just not as easy. And I suppose there's no reason why it should be easy, but it's not as straightforward. And it's not like it was in the old days where, you know, channels would have people going out and looking for people who were good. Now it's people who are good almost have to make it at Edinburgh or wherever else and make a splash, and then they might get a chance. But it is what it is, you know, and I'm not decrying it as such. It's sort of, there is a little bit of, you know, if only.
You've travelled all over the world.
I have.
Any audiences that have been particularly surprising to you, how they behave or how you've been received?
American audiences, I think. I was surprised at how well I did with an American audience. I thought I would really struggle. And American audiences, I've realised, sort of, you know, they love British comics. They love the English going over and do something. I think they're quite like, you know, our sort of how rude we can be. I think that's why we're always baddies in Hollywood movies. It's sort of they like the fact that we can be a bit, you know, scathing in our comedy. I think that's why they like, you know, Ricky Gervais doing the Golden Globes or whatever it is he does. You know, they quite like that about the English comics, that we can get away. And of course they've got a bit of a pedigree for that as well. But yeah, I was surprised how easily I managed to work American audiences. I thought it would take me a long time to crack them, and you know, and make it work. And some things fall flat, and then you realise that, you know, they don't know what a jumper is. It's a sweater, or, you know, you've said pavement instead of sidewalk. You know, so some things don't work, but and also slowing down was important for me. I speak quite fast on stage, and they're not as used to hearing English accents as we are hearing American accents. We've got a lot more American TV than they have English TV. That is improving. They're seeing more and more British TV now over there, but you do have to slow down, because they're sort of, what do you say?
And what about the accent? Does the accent?
It's funny. They're not very good at discerning the difference between English accents. So, you know, they almost just see it as one accent. I don't think they might spot the difference between Scottish and English, but North and South, I don't think they're really that tuned in as much as we are. You know, we can tell a Southern American accent, we can tell a New York accent, but I suppose I might not be able to tell the difference between you know, a Colorado and a Texas. You know, I might find that slightly harder. But yeah, they just see it as, you know, you've got an English accent. Oh, well, you ought to hear, you know, the Queen. She doesn't talk like I do. But it's funny they do, you know, sort of go, you speak so proper. I go, what, me? Eh? How, what? Yeah.
What was it like then not performing because of lockdown?
Apart from missing, as my nervous breakdown earlier showed, apart from missing being in front of an audience and doing what I love doing. Apart from missing it, it hasn't been too bad. Thankfully, I've benefited from the government SEIS payments. They've worked for me. So I've sort of, and I've had bits of work, writing work, and a few online corporate-y things that I've done. That I've sort of got through it, and work for me looks like it's going to be starting pretty full on from September. So provided I can live the next 2 months, then I'll be all right. But I've sort of I've not really spent a lot of time with magic and comedy. I've sort of spent more of my time learning ukulele and playing music and colouring in pictures on my computer, of black and white images, turn them into colour, and colorization techniques on Photoshop. I've really just, it's almost been like a career break, rather than, I've almost saw it as a chance to have a sabbatical. And my hope is, and I could be wrong there, because of it, I'll come back slightly different, a bit fresher, because things will be a little bit vague to me, and I'll have to ad-lib a bit more, and I'll have to cover things, and I'll have to, things that I've forgotten, I might do a different way, and it might be better. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back, but I've sort of used it as a break, really, an enforced break, nonetheless. But yeah, break.
And what was it like for the family, having you at home so much?
Well, I mean, that's been hard for all of us. Obviously, my wife's used to me, being away and just having me around the house 24/7. I mean, it's hard for me. We sort of had 20 odd years learning to, have this nomadic life of appearing for a couple of weeks and then I'm off, and she thinks great, and she can have her own little time and disappear and see my mates and stay in hotels. So, but surprisingly, we've sort of, we've got on.
She won't be listening to this, will she?
No, she won't actually. We haven't killed each other, and I think she's probably looking forward to me disappearing again and having a bit of free time to, watch Neighbours and EastEnders without me saying, "Can I put the golf on?" She's probably looking forward to that. She's probably looking forward to me earning money again, and probably being a bit happier that I'm doing gigs again. I've probably been a bit more miserable than I can be. Well, I'm not aware of it, but maybe. And I'm looking forward to, having that travelling life again. I've missed that. I've missed driving. I've missed just being in my car and seeing hills and, stopping at service stations and saying, right, yeah, hello, Bob, can I come and stay with you tonight? I'm in Barnsley or whatever. Yeah, you can. And seeing all these mates on the road. I've missed all of that. So we're both looking forward to our normal coming back.
Has your faith helped you?
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult to say because I don't know. I've sort of had a faith since I was 19. I sort of became a Christian then. I wasn't brought up a Christian, but so I sort of, it's something I just take for granted now. I don't worry about things. I've got a very much sort of God will look after me type attitude. So yeah, I think it probably has helped, but it's difficult to quantify because I don't know what my life would be like without it, as such. And I see lots of people who survived and very, very happy who have got faith. So for me to claim that it's impossible to live a life without wouldn't be flying in the face of evidence. So, but yeah, it has helped me. It's sort of it's just that inner sort of calm that I think I've got,
and the excitement as well. That first time you're going to go on stage.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, I've had a few little bits of bobs where I've gone out in front of 12 people during the last summer when lockdown eased a bit, and I did a wedding for 30 people, and they were so keen for me to be good. They so knew that I'd done a gig for so long. They were so behind me. It was almost like I almost felt like saying, all right, stop trying. It was almost like, they were whooping and cheering 30 people for everything I did, and it was just fantastic. I had a great time. I had lived so much. It almost felt like very little of my routines were as they used to be. So yeah, I'm looking forward. It's strange because I'm going to be going back with this tour with Tim, which is Plastic Elvis, and it's not really a comedy tour. It's not. I'm not doing any magic, and the comedy it's a character. I'm playing Big Buddy Holly with a wig and glasses and an American accent. So, well, hi there. It's really great to be here, and howdy. I apologise to all my American friends for that accent, but and played the electric ukulele and singing Big Buddy Holly songs. So I mean, it's funny. I'm going to be going back doing something that I never used to do anyway, as well as my own tour where I will be doing what I used to do. So yeah, it's very exciting, really. Sort of, September onwards is like, I don't know what it's going to be like. Really, I just, I can't begin to imagine sort of how it's going to be, just to sort of leave with a suitcase again and think, right, I'm going from, Rochdale, and then I'm down in Plymouth, and I've got to meet somebody and set up and do a gig, and now I'm going to go to Tim's and put that lot of gear away, get a ukulele out and go to a theatre and sing songs, and then right back to the magic and the comedy. It's going to be crazy. Who knows? I'll probably get a lot of pantomime offers, after this. Yeah, people knocking on my door.
But the joy you're going to be sharing as well with the world. That's the thing.
Yeah. No, that'll be good. Like I say, just to know that, making people happy.
And just to see that many people there, and I'm sure they'll be all on their feet, and you'll be a wreck afterwards, and just it will be good times are coming back.
Yeah, they are, and it's funny, isn't it? Because we all can see them coming back, and we can all see these dates, and dates when lockdowns are going to end, which got put back sadly, and then we can see dates when gigs are going to be happening, but none of us dare fully believe it. We're all saying when it's happening we'll believe it, and when, and then also how's it going to be when it happens? How are we going to be able to get people to the audience and say pick a card without have you been double jabbed, taken a test, what, clean your hands with this sanitizer, how's it going to work? Is it going to be normal as it was? Is it going to be? I don't know. I think people want normal. Don't they? I think people want to go back. I don't think people want, you handing them a deck of cards with a set of tongs, and I don't think people want that. And from my limited experience of the few things I've done, audiences seem to want to be a normal audience. That's what the slight feeling I'm getting from the few things I've done and the things I've seen and people I've talked to, is people want to have normal theatre back again. They don't want some weird, distanced, perspex screen theatre back. They just want no holds barred, laugh out loud, don't care if I spit on you.
You don't do that to the audience, do you?
Only in real. No.
Well, this leads me on to my last question.
Right.
Your dream pantomime. So you can be in it, you can choose the production, you can choose the theatre, and your cast can be alive or dead, or a mixture of both. Right.
I'd love. I think. The Palladium's great. I've done the Palladium. The only reason, well, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons I did Britain's Got Talent was so that I could perform on the Palladium stage. I'd never done it. And I've done the Royal Albert Hall, and I've done quite a few nice theatres in London. But I'd never done the Palladium. So I deliberately told the researchers I was unavailable for all the dates in Manchester. I said, sorry, I've got gigs. So I just lied blatantly to them. And they tried to switch me to the Manchester. And I've done the MEN in Manchester, so I didn't want to do that. So I think I'd want to do with the Palladium. Who would I want to play? Maybe. I mean, I did really enjoy Little John when I was in Robin Hood, but that's not a popular panto, is it? Really, Robin Hood. You don't see that a lot these days, do you? I mean, I'd love to be Buttons, but I'm not young enough or good looking enough for Buttons. I know Jimmy Cricket does Buttons regularly, but he's Jimmy Cricket, and he's been doing it so long that people love him doing it. So maybe a dame. Maybe I'd do a dame. What dames could I do? Maybe Wishy Washy. Yeah. She a dame?
Widow Twanky.
That's Widow Twanky in Wishy Washy.
Wishy
That's the
Washy.
brother, isn't it? Wishy Washy.
The brother of Aladdin.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't want to be Wishy Washy. He's the good-looking one, isn't he?
No, Aladdin's the good-looking one. Wishy Washy's the one that's a bit dubious.
Oh, is he a bit thick? Is he?
Yeah,
Is he?
should be. Sorry, any Wishy Washies listening out there.
Yeah, Widow Twanky might be quite nice. Widow Twanky.
Magic in the laundry. I could imagine you with that.
Yeah, I could do a magic washing routine, couldn't I? Magic all the clothes back after they've been ruined.
With your bloomers and
with your bloomers. Yeah, you could do cut and restored rope with a washing line. You could do sliding knot with a washing line. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah.
You're giving producers already ideas now.
I know, but only me. These ideas belong to me. If I see them in any shows,
you want 20%.
You want me, Widow Twanky. Yeah. Do you know what? I'd love to work with. You mentioned him to me earlier when we weren't on camera. James Harrison. He's great for musically. Is he doing Sheffield again this year?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love to work with him again because we had a lot of fun musically, and I think now that I've got the electric uke and also this last year and a half I've just really developed the uke a lot more. I'd love to do something with James because he's a great musical director and he gets involved. So I'd probably want him involved in my Palladium show. I'd love Tim Vine to be in it as well, but Tim's a bit funny about working with other comedians. So he might not do it. He might refuse. Who else would I want? I don't know.
You'd need Nabonaza, a baddie.
Right, baddie. Who could have as a baddie? Yeah. I don't know.
You must have worked with some bad people over the years.
I have, yeah, but I mean, genuinely bad. I wouldn't want to mention their names. There's a lot of them in the magic world.
Sorry, Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, Martin Duffy, he can be the baddie. Dear me. Now I'm trying to think who'd be a good baddie. I mean, there's so many great actors out there that I'd just love to work with a lot of these great names. To be honest, yeah. Do they ever have Aladdin played by a girl anymore? Do they do that anymore? Do they ever have the principal boys? Is that still a thing?
Rarely.
Yeah, I thought that might have stopped.
It's a shame.
But it's funny because why did that stop? Because the dames didn't stop, did it? But the principal boy thing did.
Well, everything now, the way things are going, Aladdin as a production is not frowned upon as such, but it's just very hard culturally.
Yeah, cultural
and things have
appropriation,
changed, especially over the past 18 months.
Yeah. So what are they doing? Are they casting, ethnic minorities for the roles, or are they doing it more as a British story?
We don't know yet. That's the thing. It's we don't know what's going to come back,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a very interesting time for theatre, for humour.
Yeah, yeah. You see, I you know, I can see how, you know, doing a silly Chinese accent and, you know, strange eye makeup to make yourself look Chinese could offend, but you could do it without that. You could just be, you know, hello, I'm Aladdin, and you do it with English, but you happen to be living in wherever. It's a bit odd. It might be a bit strange for kids to get their head round. But yeah, it is funny, isn't it? It is interesting times, as they say, for these things. I'm all for getting it right and not offending. But there must be a way of doing it where people aren't offended and yeah, it still works. So I'm Widow Twanky, but I'm from Teesside.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Aladdin was born in Leeds. James Harrison is musical director. We don't know who the baddie is. We don't know who Aladdin is, do we?
No. But it's going to be at the Palladium.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, to be honest, there are loads of acts I'd love to work with, and I wouldn't really want to pick them out because.
What was it like then, that first time walking on that Palladium stage?
Oh, it was weird. The walking on bit, because I didn't walk on like most acts would walk onto the Palladium stage, because it's Britain's Got Talent and you don't get introduced. And so it's the oddest thing in the world that you walk on to no introduction and the audience all chatting, which is how you wouldn't really normally want to go on stage at the Palladium. So literally I'm backstage, then they say, all right, go talk to Mountain Deck now. And I knew I was on next, but I didn't really know how it was going to happen. I went, and Mountain Deck said, hi, how are you, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And then they went, all right then, where you go? And I literally went, what? I went, yeah, go on. I went, all right. And so I just sort of walk on, just side of my own foot, and looking, and there's the Palladium, jam-packed full of people. I mean, granted, further back than normal, because you've got this batch of nothingness where there's just crew and judges. And then sort of looking, and everybody slowly going, oh, the next act's here. And everything quietens down, and the judges go, so, who are you? Weird, you know. I'd love to do the Palladium again, so I could either, you know, walk onto a musical overture and, you know, Widow Twanky's walk on music, or ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Archer. So maybe I would like to do the Palladium again under those circumstances, you know.
Did it feel different? Did you feel the spirits of performers before?
No, nothing like that. But you do realise why people like working it, because it is theatres have a feel, you know, which is why a lot of the Matcham theatres are so good. It's because the audience are on top of you, you know. And I don't know who designed the Palladium. Was it Palladium or Matcham? Yeah. Well, there you go. You know, Matcham theatres always had the audience really close and up, so you look at a wall of people, and the sound hits you instantly. So it's great for comedy because you get instant feedback. I did the Royal Albert Hall once as part of a big charity event. It was full, 4,500 or whatever, and I can remember there walking on and doing a gag and thinking, oh, they never got that, and then hearing a bit of a laugh, and then that laugh got bigger and bigger and bigger and came at me like a wave and hit me, because they're so far away, and that sound imperceptibly takes time to get to you, and so your timing goes, and you have to slow everything down, and you have to leave beats between. Not great for comedy, fantastic for music, but the Palladium is just, you know, it's perfect for variety and for comedy, and the lines are all right, the angles are all right, you know, You sort of you're not worried about people out. You in a good theatre, you don't want anybody that's in your peripheral vision. You do something like the City Variety at Leeds, and you've got these two boxes, you know, on the side, and they're almost on stage, and you have to turn to look to them. And it's not in the round, but you almost feel a little bit like you've got to constantly. So you can't just play, you know, looking up and down. You've got to play looking to the left and to the right. You slightly turn your back on people, and, you know, magic-wise, that adds another element of, you know, can they see what I'm doing type thing. So you've got none of that. The Palladium is just the perfect theatre, you know, designed by the perfect theatre designer. I got some modern theatres now, and they're designed for the audience. They're not designed for the performers. And a good theatre should be designed for the performer first, and then the audience. And that's when the audience will get the best out of it. Yeah. But a lot of them are designed for music venues and theatre where it matters less, you know, and it's all, you know, acoustics is more important, sound going out than sound coming back. But Matcham knew what he was doing when he designed the theatre. He designed it, you know, perfect for the people on stage.
Well, John, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For
Thank you.
the time speaking to the Panto podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you, and thank you for my Panto podcast mug. I'm gonna have a coffee with that later today.